Got it? Okay. Okay. Oh, I didn't get you a chair out.
No, no.
You got, very good. Okay. I did everything but that. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. I want to say hello to, well, first of all, before I forget, because I didn't have his name here, but because I thought he would be here, I want to say hello to Dwight, and hello from all of us, Dwight. Sorry you're not here tonight, but we love you, and hope to see you next week. And then hello to Mo, Ro, Phil, Jim, John, Don, Ron, Peter, Renee, Steve, and Uncle Dave. And, we have to say hello to Peggy. She's not here either. Hello, Peggy. Okay, so, all right, great. All right, going to get started here. And first of all, I'm going to just a little bit of a report. June and I just got back from Hawaii on Monday. And this purchase here, if you can see it, can you see it there? Robin? Okay. All right. And that's Chemo's. That's a restaurant in Lahaina. And it's a very good place to eat if you're ever over there, if you've never eaten there. But this is a sweatshirt from there, which I had to buy because I was freezing to death. Well, that's a little exaggeration, but it was cold. And all but one day, the last couple of days, the day before we left was pretty decent. The day we left was really nice, and but the other days were windy, rainy. The seas were high. I never saw one turtle. Usually there's turtle out in front of our condo, and but the water was too rough for them to eat. And I did not golf. I was not even tempted to golf. I saw the beautiful golf courses and said, "Hi, nice," but I was not even tempted. And we went over there to rest and relax, and took my bride over there, and we just rested and relaxed. So that's what we did.
Did June go too?
Yes, she went too. All right. Before I give you the notes today, I'm going to preface this, and hopefully you will permit me to get a little bit personal, and a little bit personal about our life, and because it involves actually several people. Actually, everything involves you all, especially if you're here because you like the message that you hear at this Bible class, okay? Because I'm going to share something that my best friend wrote. He wrote it a couple of years ago. I don't remember seeing it at the time. But this is from my best friend, Bill Carpenter, okay? And so I want to give you a little idea about Bill Carpenter. So to do that, I kind of have to go all the way back to 1975 when the Lord first grabbed a hold of me and began to show me grace. And I've told you something about that. And through that, my lovely sister here came right along. She probably was ahead of me in the grace orientation aspect. And but as we got to sharing things, she and my mother and I were basically the only three of us at the time, but some of the young people that we were with began to come along with this idea of grace, because we were in a church that was full of legalism, all right? But but that's beside the point. In sharing our grace message, a Baptist preacher's wife, wasn't it? And Donna was sharing the truth that she was seeing with this lady, and she said, "Oh, I bet you guys would like this book." And she gave her the book, Jesus Loves Me, which was written by a man by the name of Herb Rausch back in Belpre, Ohio.
What year was this again?
1975. Okay, long time ago. All right, so make a long story short, that was the first preacher that, as I was looking around for places, churches, and somebody that had this message of grace, and I couldn't find one. And this book came along, and it was very, very grace-oriented. Now, mind you, Herb Rausch was not fully where we are today, but he was ahead of us at that time when he wrote this book called Jesus Loves Me. And so I wound up that I went back there to sit under his tutelage. And a few months after I got there, he quit teaching. But in the meantime, I went to the hospital one day to visit one of the guys who was had married Herb Rausch's daughter, Jennifer. And we all congregated around this place called the Book Room. That's where Herb Rausch had his office, and it was called the Book Room. So anyway, one day Jennifer comes into the office in there, and this scruffy-looking guy comes in with her. And I said, what in the world is she doing with a guy like that? Okay, and lo and behold, I hear later on that he was in the hospital. He had playing softball and broke his arm. And it was a pretty severe break, and he was still in bed. So I was visiting the hospital, and I went in to see him. He awoke, and this is the story he tells. I barely remember it, but I'm at the foot of his bed. He wakes up and sees this guy whom he didn't know. He didn't know who I was. You know, who's this guy? Well, long story short, he became a very, very, very good friend. He and Jennifer, and we've very much similar past in relationship to our marriages, and so we became good friends. Okay, before we left, and it came out here. And then so anyway, but Bill was. June and I began to follow another pastor, name of R.B. Thiem Jr. out of Houston, Texas. And he wasn't where we are today, but he taught the Grace Walk. If you ever want to know really what we taught and learned for all those many years, you get Steve McVeigh's book called Grace Walk. And although Steve says if he were to rewrite that book, he would write most of it the same way. But now Steve understands, what we understand too. But this Grace Walk was what we learned, and for these many years. But during this time, when Bill would visit, he and I would argue. And we would, I was usually ahead of him somewhere in this Grace Walk and in the theology that we were learning. But as soon as he would see what I saw, he would run ahead of me, okay? It's just the way it always is. It's like, I don't know, one of us is a turtle, one of us is the hare. But back in 1984, when my daughter died, Junie and I don't even know how we got the money to even go. We were still very poor back in those days, but when my daughter was killed, we went back to Columbus, got off the plane. Of course, we had told Bill. He and Jennifer met us at the plane, and Bill said, I've taken a week off. I'm here for you. Okay? That's the kind of friend he was, the kind of friend he's always remained. Even though we have argued, not violently, but very vociferously over the years, okay? Junie and Jennifer, they about to lose it whenever Bill and I get to arguing, okay? And of course, I tell Bill all the time, I said, Bill, you're getting loud. I said, you know what that means? It means you're not right. I'm right. Well, it came back in 2011, after I saw this wonderful grace message that we're still learning and a part of, that God saved the world through Jesus. It wasn't just those who believed, because that's where we were, Junie and I and Bill, and we all believed. All you had to do was just say, I believe in Jesus, and you were in. Okay, and when you were in, you couldn't get out. But we all still believed you had to believe in order to be saved, in order to be born again. Well, in 2011, the Father disabused me of that idea. And then, of course, I became the nut that I am today. And, of course, Bill, though, when I started sharing with him, we went to our days of arguing. And so for the next couple of years, when we got to talking, there was this discussion, okay? But never, not one time in all those years, did we ever lose out on our friendship. Our friendship always remained at a high level. And I liken it to David and Jonathan. You know the story of David and Jonathan. I don't know which one of us is David and which of us is Jonathan. It doesn't make any difference. It's just that kind of a love relationship between two men that is not sexual in any way. It's just wonderful love. Okay, and but again, this all goes back now to this time back in 2075 when this little book came to us from a Baptist preacher's wife. Now, mind you, from her 1975. What did I say? Oh, 2075. that hasn't happened yet. 1975, and now today we're here. All of us are here based on that one little gift. And the one little gift was not totally right in its theology, but it was a step. It was a step. The book. It was a step, and it was a progression. And of course, back there I go, and that's where I get my bride, Junie, you know. And so this is not just about me. It's me, Donna, my mother, and, you know, it's just, and all these things, but we go back 2,500 miles back there. I go back there, find a bride, find a best friend, and actually more than one good friend, and our other good friend, I think I shared a while back, just died a few months ago, and so we were like the Three Musketeers. Now out here, and I'm out here, and Bill's back there. We were playing golf one time, and a guy heard us arguing that we were playing with. He says, "How long have you guys been friends?" Bill said, 25 years. He said, how have you managed to remain friends the way you argue? Bill said, 2,500 miles.
How long have you been friends with this Bill?
All right, then that gets me to this, and back to, you know, here, and I get this message, and Steve McVeigh was my confirmation when I saw 2 Corinthians 5, 18, 19, and 20. I said, God, I need confirmation that this is true. And of course, what 2 Corinthians 5 says is that for God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. And the world struck me like I'd read that verse before, never meant that to me. All of a sudden, boom. And I said, wow, is this something I'm imagining here? Or is this really true? That God reconciled the whole world to himself in Jesus. I said, I need confirmation. Next day I get confirmation on the website, on Facebook, from a guy right here in town who didn't even believe what I was seeing, but he put something about Steve McVeigh on there. And so I go to Steve McVeigh's website and I get my confirmation, but I also look in there and I find a guy named Bill Rose who had a link from there. And so I contacted Bill. Now here today, look where we are. And yeah, huh? That was 2011 or 2000, somewhere a few months. It was a few months afterwards that I would be seeing this, but it wasn't too long after that. And so we started being together and started being friends, and then, you know, I started teaching the Bible class, I think, first. No, I can't remember which is first, or that or the radio program. I think maybe the radio program was first. But I've told you all the rest of the story. But anyway, now we got Bill and Carl. Now the Three Musketeers are we three guys. And I know it was with Carl. I don't think he heard this. So I think you did. This morning we were together, and I was telling them that now I meet with some guys over in Reno. And this guy who's a friend of Bill's is over there in Reno, and he gives me the biggest compliment that I've had, I think. And he said he saw Carl and me. We had a meeting. All of us were over there in Reno one day, and he saw Carl and I arguing, because Carl and I argue like Bill and I argue. Okay, we disagree on a lot of things, but we love each other. And I've never stopped loving Carl, and he's never stopped loving me. And Carl was one of the big elements in my life when before 2011, when we were discussing. I said, well, faith is required for salvation, but it's non-meritorious. That's what we had been taught by Colonel Thiem. Faith is non-meritorious. Carl said, if it's required, it's meritorious. And I disagreed at the time, but he planted the seed. And of course that seed down and eventually wound up into 2 Corinthians 5, 18, 19, and 20. So, but this guy said over there, he said, I saw you guys arguing, but he said, I saw love. He said, I didn't see any rancor. You know, you disagreed, but you disagreed in love. And that was what the early Christians said they were known by, how they loved one another, okay? And that's what I see in this group. I tell people about you guys all the time. I said, you'll see this. I said, when people come in the room, they grab one another, hug each other. I said, I said, nobody told them to do it or anything. You just go around the room hugging each other. And so that's just a little bit about where Bill is, okay? Bill is this guy who loves. Oh, I was going to tell you, too, that he and I are different in so many ways. He's a worker. I'm a shirker. He's 77 years old, and he still goes out and tramps fields and stuff. Recently, he just tore his shin open all the way to the bone on doing something. And he's had a four-way bypass, wasn't it, honey? Heart attack. 77, he's still out working and working for the independent phone companies who are out. He's an engineer. He has to go out first and lay out and see what the job's going to require, and then he goes back and puts it on computer and prints out the prints and how that the guys take out, that the workers take out, and put phone lines in and so on. So that's what he still does. Still working, and so but we're so different in so many ways, but so alike in our love for Jesus. And where I was going with this was that years ago, he's the one who said, love wins. Before Rob Bell was born, who wrote the book, Love Wins, Bill Carpenter was saying this. And what it hit me today is that we all the time are saying things, a lot of times ahead of time before we really believe them. Okay? And he was saying that years ago before he really believed it. Okay? Now he really believes it. And then I'm going to go over this and read this with you, and I'll pass these out. So I just wanted you to have a little bit of background about Bill. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He doesn't have a lot of money in the bank because he gives so much stuff away. He has a big family like we do, and but he's money goes through his fingers like it was butter. Okay. All right. So this is from my best friend Bill Carpenter. Sharing thoughts. See, this is all the dark word are his words. They never come out in written form exactly like it happened in time. And I've told you before, that's me. I get these messages and I see and hear, and if I could say in the beautiful language that I hear it, I would be in demand as a speaker. Okay? But I think this is what the Lord, for Bill and I both, and I think, Bill, don't you say that happens the same with you? You hear a beautiful message and you can't get it out?
That's bliss, and you can't interpret it.
You cannot get it out the way you hear it. And so you always have to depend on the Holy Spirit to give you the message when it comes out of our mouth more beautifully than it comes out of our mouth. Some of my most enjoyable time with the Lord is my hour-and-a-half drive to and from my work location. When he first started this years ago, he had to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to work. He was complaining. And then he found out this is a beautiful time that he had conversations with the Lord. And so he quit complaining about it. As I was driving back from Huntington, West Virginia yesterday, I was talking with the Lord, and I commented that they say that as you get older, you become more childish. Since they consider me old, would it be possible to ask a little boy question? Then I asked him something that I have thought about for a long time. When Adam sinned and tried to separate himself from you, why didn't you just smite him down, grab another handful of dirt, and start again? You spoke the world into existence by your words, so why didn't you form another Adam and save the world all the grief and sorrow that the first Adam caused by his sin? Have y'all ever asked this question? Have you ever wondered about it? Okay, never? Okay. First he said, spoken like the little boy you really are. This is God talking to him now. Thinking only in human terms for your own well-being. You really haven't thought this out. It's really very simple. That's the kind of message that I keep trying to say here in this class. It's this simple, and I try to keep making it as simple as possible. Love is the answer. Then he said, for a guy who talks about love all the time, you sure don't seem to understand it much. Okay? And like I said, for years he's been saying love wins, but he didn't really fully understand it. All right? And so God is saying to him, my love is not an attribute. Love is my essence. It is who I am. Okay? And you know, we've shared that here with you. Death is not a part of my essence. Let me read that again. Death is not a part of my essence. I am only about life. My Son never spoke or touched anyone that he didn't give them life, and he and I are one. Isn't that beautiful? Amen. As for Adam, I loved and I still love Adam. He didn't just begin in the Garden of Eden. He has always been with me. He wasn't always aware of me, but I personally have known him always. Think about this. Then there's you and your family and all their families. I personally know everyone and their families before my Son came to save mankind. Now, do you see how you said in there, he didn't say I knew, he said I personally know. Everything with God is in the now. The past, the present, and the future is always present with God. So you and I have always been present with God. Okay? Now, he said, I didn't just begin in the Garden of Eden. He has always been with me. He wasn't always aware of me, but I personally gave him, I personally have known him always. Then there is you and your family. And I personally know everyone and their families before my Son came to save mankind. I personally know everyone who was here on earth when my Son came and was in the flesh on earth. And I personally know everyone who came after my Son came back to me. And I personally know everyone who will come in the future from today. You forget that you were in Adam. What I did for Adam because I loved him, I also did for the whole world because I loved them. Go back and read Psalm 139 and you'll get a glimpse of what I know. So if I eliminated Adam, I would have eliminated you. Right? Okay? And I love you just as I love Adam. Always have, always will. Now here's where Tommy would normally come in, and I love what Tommy says. What do you say, Tommy? I'm his
favorite.
I'm his favorite. Tommy says, I'm his favorite. And, you know, if I could just get everyone to think, I'm his favorite. Okay? How much more enjoyable would our life be if we looked at ourselves as his favorite? Okay? Not in some selfish way. Tommy doesn't say that in some selfish way. Tommy says, I'm his favorite, because he knows that we're all his favorite, because what? We're all part of the same human body. The same human mankind. Okay? We're all there. And so Tommy knows he's just a part of this human mankind, but we're his favorite. God only has, well, he has 2 children. Well, he really only has 1 because Jesus is the head. We're the body, okay? And so if Jesus is his favorite, we have to be his favorite as well. Right? Tommy?
When you look at us as children and remember the child that didn't think they were the favorite wasn't happy. The results of not being the favorite is unhappiness. The results of being the favorite was extremely happy. Now, if we really realized that, then wouldn't we not love on a different level?
Mm-hmm.
We would.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we really, not just said it like you were saying.
Yeah.
You said on something when you first started this, Bill, that those moments that you spend together, however God the Father gets us into those meditating moments where we get something, we're just going, Shazam!
Mm-hmm.
You know, how in the world do I describe that? Because as soon as it comes out of my mouth to somebody else, it's just not quite as wonderful when you're saying, please God, don't move me. Leave me right here.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Favorite.
Yeah. And of course, one of the problems with that sometimes is we tend to want to stay in that moment. But that's only a moment is there for you to look for the next moment. Don't stay around, what was it, Meribah, that the Jews, where they complained, but the Jews wanted to stay. There's just one place. They wanted to just hang around there, but God had designed for them to go to Canaan. And so the tendency is for us to want to, oh, that's a wonderful moment. That's so fantastic. And it is. I never want to take that away from anybody, but you're not meant to stay there. You're meant to remember it, but move on to the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment. Because this life is a progression of moments, a progression of learning. And at the moment you think you have arrived, you're dead. Dead in the water, okay? We have not arrived, This fellowship has not arrived. We're just beginning, okay? And and Bill seeing this, and Carl, we're seeing this go around, and we're just the first fruits, and but we don't want to just stick here. We want what's next, and this is what I'm always looking for with God. What's next, okay? Now, back in 2008, I said to God, is this all there is? And then in 2011, he said, I'll show you. and so, but now, since then, I've never said, is this all there is? I'm saying, what's next? What's next? Because before I thought, well, this is it, But when I saw that he was the Savior of the world, and that everybody and everything is going to be restored to a higher plane than it ever was before, we're not going back to the Garden of Eden. We're going to something better. Now, the Garden of Eden was fantastic, right? What did God say about it? It's good. It's good. But when he made man, he said, that's very good. But the new creation is even better, because the new creation is spiritual and is united with God. You see, Adam did not have union with God. He had fellowship. He had fellowship in the garden, but he did not have union. Jesus came to him in the cool of the day. Where is Jesus when he visits you? Where is he? Does he come from some other place? You can't get any closer to Jesus than you are, because he's in you right now. He's in everyone. So we don't have to say, come Jesus, where I'm going to, in the cool of the day. Jesus is with us 24/7. And so anytime you want to speak to him or listen to him, just start listening, start talking, one or the other, okay? And so that's how close he is today. We are already in a better place than Adam ever was when he was in the garden, okay? In terms of our relationship, our fellowship with Jesus. Now, he was face-to-face at the time. We yet aren't face-to-face, but it takes our leaving this place and dying, which is not a bad thing. Dying physically is a blessing, because the moment we leave this body, we're face to face with Jesus, which is where we want to be. Okay, that's where we want to be if we really understand who we are. And I say, okay, I'm ready. Who was it? Okay, somebody in here, I can't remember. Oh yeah, it was you. You said, hey, you're ready one way or the other. It's okay with you. Okay to live, okay to die. It doesn't matter. Okay? Whatever Jesus wants.
As long as my pillow's cold.
Okay. All right.
The moment to moment, the moment to moment relation, the result is something better.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like you were saying, don't just sit there and soak. Well, I was describing a moment. I was not describing the result, because the result is when one somehow sees that it's not just to get a bite, not just to get a Sunday morning, a Wednesday night, a Sunday evening. That's just a bite. That's nothing. It's moment to moment. And then conversations like you're reading here,
Mm-hmm.
those are all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the subsequent after that, I have no idea what it's going to be, but I know it's always better.
Yeah.
I mean, we talking hair raise, goosebumps, crazy.
That's great. Yeah. Right. All right. All right. So let's go back here. So if I eliminated Adam, I would have eliminated you. And I love you just as I love Adam. Always have, always will. So don't try and limit me again. When I dealt, now, this sounds like it's, it could have been very kind of mean, but that's not the way God talks to us. I know how he talks to me, and I know how he's talking to Bill here. He's just saying lovingly here, don't try and limit me, When I dealt with Adam and Eve's fall, they weren't the only issue. I saw in them every person, personally, who was created and who would come into this universe that I had created. Universal and personal are all the same to me. Time and eternity all exist in me. I died for all men, and all men, and he means all persons here, ladies, it's not just men, and all persons are personal to me. I have known them before they existed, even in the womb. I know their days, but what you and the world need to know is that I love you. This is God. This is the God of the universe talking to this West Virginia hillbilly. Okay? Bill couldn't think these things up himself. Okay? I mean, he's a smart dude, but he's not that smart. Okay? I'm not that smart. Okay? These are conversations that he has, and he knows this is God telling him this stuff. He said, when my son went to the cross, he died for all. He knew them all by name. They were in him when he created all things. So, little boy, you like that? So, little boy, where did you originate? In my love. Love, love, love. You cannot escape it. I told you I would seek you out. Hello. Do you now understand more about why I left the 99 to go get one lost sheep? Or why he had them pick up every piece of food left after he fed the multitude? Love. Can you understand now why after Peter denied him 3 times and took his friends and all went back to fishing, that he prepared a meal on the shore, and after feeding him, he said to Peter, feed my lambs. Love. My love never quits, and it never fails. Bill told me when he was teaching 1 Corinthians 13, and he kept, as he was going through teaching these, he began to see this full love of God and this full gospel. And he said when he saw it, love never fails, he was done. It was over for him. He now was universal like the rest of us. Okay. For you see in my knowing all about you always, I know all your questions even before you ask them. But only as a child filled with awe and wonder can you really hear my answer. Jesus is the Father's love. Jesus is the answer. Okay? And He really blew me away the other day when he posted this on Facebook, and I just wanted to go over it with you, and give you a framework of this guy, this person who wrote it. Hopefully, they keep talking about coming out. Jennifer cannot stand to fly, and so hopefully this fall maybe we can get them out here, and we'll make sure that he gets to speak to you, and you all will know about it so you can meet him, and we'll have him share. And wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. And
That's
so
okay, but can he fix my phone?
yeah, he probably can. Okay, all right. And where I started this morning, I really didn't start with this thing with Bill. I woke up this morning and thinking about this title, this effortless life. Okay, and it was just it. The words came to me, the effortless life. And 1 Peter says, casting all your cares on him because he cares about you. So if you cast all your cares on him, what do you have to think about or worry about or do? Okay, there's nothing. It's okay. Now the effort comes really in being able to cast them all on him. There's where the effort's involved, and
Taking them back.
yeah, not taking it back. So I'm going to read these verses here, Hebrews 3:19. So we see that they were unable to enter because of unbelief. This is going back to the Old Testament and the Israelites, and they were not allowed to enter into Canaan because they didn't believe. There were two. Remember the spies that Moses sent out, the spies, and they sent 12 spies. 10 came back, and they're called the unfaithful spies, and the two faithful. And the two faithful were Joshua and Caleb. Okay, and of course we know about Joshua later on after Moses died. Joshua became the leader of the Israelites, and he said, "Hey, as for me and my house, we're with the Lord." Okay, and so he said, "You all can be what you want to be, but we're with the Lord." And of course, the Lord helped him then to go into Canaan. But the rest of the Israelites that came out of Egypt, all that came out of Egypt, died in the wilderness and were never permitted to go into the promised land of rest. Okay. Because of their unbelief. Now you remember they saw all kinds of miracles. They saw the 10 plagues happen to the Egyptians. They saw the Egyptians drown in the ocean after they had passed through it on dry ground. And they had water and manna fed to them during their time in the desert. They had a pillar of fire by night and a cloud following them during the day, and the fire kept them warm at night because the desert gets cold at night. The fire kept them warm, and the cloud kept them cool during the day. Okay, God's provision for them was ongoing and continual, and yet every day they forgot what they had seen the day before. They forgot about seeing the Egyptian army drown in the sea. Okay, and so they believed the 10 unfaithful spies who came back and said, "Oh, there's giants in the land, and we can't do this." They forgot God had brought them out of the Egyptians, and said, "Hey, I'm taking you to a place. This is your land. This is for you." But they didn't believe. Okay, now.
Spoil rotten.
Okay, what?
Spoil rotten.
Yeah. So.
The expectation.
Yeah. All right. So Hebrews 4. Therefore, since the promise to enter his rest remains, let us beware that none of you be found to have fallen short. For we also have received the good news just as they did, but the message they heard did not benefit them, since they were not united with those who heard it in faith. For we who have believed enter the rest, in keeping with what he has said, so I swore in my anger they will not enter my rest, even though his works have been finished since the foundation of the world. So, we have been entered into God's rest. Okay? This is the rest. He's talking about this rest. We have been entered into it from the cross. But we fail oftentimes to participate in it because we don't operate in faith. We don't believe we have been entered into it. We don't believe Jesus when he says, cast every care on me. Okay? Right? We say these things, but we often don't believe them. And so we fail to rest even though we're in God's rest. There's nothing for you to do. Nothing for you to do. Nothing. Except to believe. Okay? Which is not really doing much. Okay? It's just saying, okay, you said it, I believe it. That settles it. You know, religion has a saying that says, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. No, it's God said it, that settles it, and I believe it. See the difference? Okay? And so that's really is a big difference. We believe our salvation because we have been saved. The fact is, it's done. And then we're able to believe. Yes, Tommy?
So my question is, because these are the kind of not arguments, but these are the queries I have, which are, how is it that man, me, has always inserted my part in something that I have no part in? You see, this covenant was one-sided, right?
Yes, right.
Am I wrong there?
No, one
Okay,
side.
so-
Yeah.
and
No, it was
somehow-
it was two-sided. Covenant was two-sided.
Yeah, yes.
God was the party of the first part, and he was also the party of the second part.
Okay, there you go.
We're just the
Yeah,
beneficiaries.
And so, any of this argument, any of the of this interpretation, always comes from man, always comes from us,
Right.
to interpret us into something we have no part in.
There you go. Yeah,
It's God's love, period.
that's right. There you go. That's absolutely correct. Our part, let's go back to that covenant. It's the Abrahamic covenant, and it supersedes the Mosaic covenant, okay? The Mosaic covenant was just temporary, and it was for the Jews, okay? But Christianity today tries to still invoke that, okay? They try to invoke the Mosaic covenant as part of everything, and but it was null and void at the cross. The Abrahamic covenant has never been stopped, and it's always been. God said, I'm going to make of you of many nations. And your deliverer will come, out of you. So God was the party of the first part, and he says, this is my promise, and I'm going to fulfill it. You don't have any part in this except to believe it,
Well, it says right
to
there,
receive it.
Jewish nations.
Huh? No, right. No, it's all nations. And because Abraham was not a Jew when he made these promises to him. Okay? He hadn't yet been circumcised. He hadn't become a Jew. The God made his promise to Abraham when he was still a Gentile. Okay? And so, and of course, and I'm not putting the Jews down except to say, they, instead of becoming the light on the hill that they were supposed to be to the nations, they became cloistered, and they became us and them. Us and them, okay? We're special, okay? We're special, and it wasn't that, like you say, Tommy, I'm special, but because you recognize everybody's special. They thought they were just special. And therefore, they became arrogant and did not do what God had set them out to do, which is to be a light to the nations and a keeper of his word and presenter of his word, okay? So,
The sad fact is that looks like it created divisiveness. I had a very dear friend in service 45 years ago that was Lebanese. And he said, and he was just Rock Hudson beautiful. All the girls loved him. But secretly, all this happy-go-lucky, wonderful social guy, when he got in private with me, because I was sitting there with my living Bible, kind of going Baptist preacher, and it was terrible. and he said, the one thing that really bugs me is that we've had to listen for thousands of years that there's special people. And never meant anything until now.
Mhm.
We've created that
Mm-hmm.
by interpreting
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
with man.
Yeah. And now Christians do the same thing. We in the Christian world, same thing. Them and us. There's them and us.
Where are you going to church, Tommy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Them. Yeah.
there?
Same
Yeah.
with Islam.
Sure. Well, but same with all religion. It's them and us.
Well, we're
Okay.
infidels.
Yeah. And but Christianity has had the benefit of all the beautiful the Bible, and we had benefit of Jesus. You know, of course, Jesus came to save the world, not just the Jews and not just Gentiles alone, but to save everybody. But we get, and you said about divisive, and that Abraham thing became divisive, but divisiveness began in the garden. That's where it began, okay, and began to hide, you know, and so that's. But
You know, maybe, how about, for me, the divisiveness, or whatever, how you ever want to interpret it, it started with "I think," not "Lord, what do you think?"
yeah,
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where my big problem is. I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
or Mama's was yes, but the thing
Yeah.
is,
all right, okay, yeah, all right. Therefore, well, let's see, where does it end there? For we who have believed enter the rest, in keeping with what he has said. So I swore in my anger they will not enter my rest. So we've all been. This is the point. We've all been entered into the rest, but you're only going to experience that rest by faith. This is where faith comes in. Faith does not cause anything to happen. Faith causes us to be able to participate in what has already happened, or is what is happening. Okay, that's what faith does. It allows you to. It puts you into the participation. Okay, it doesn't cause God to do something for you. This is what religion tells you. Well, God will, well, if you have enough faith, God will do this for you. No. God does stuff for you, and He's already given us every spiritual blessing in the heavenlies. The Bible tells us this. What do we, do you have them? Yes, you have them. Do you believe them? Well, I don't know, but, do you experience them? We just a few weeks ago, we talked about the fruit of the Spirit. You have it. It's in you. You can't create it. The fruit of the Spirit is the fruit of the Spirit, not fruit of you. And we get to participate in that fruit. We bear that fruit, but do you eat of it? Do you partake of it? That's up to you. Simply by faith. Simply by saying, okay, I got it. And I want to experience it, and that's what faith does. It allows you to experience what has already happened or is happening, or what will happen in the future. I mean, we believe by faith we're going to be, when we die, that this veil we're going to go right through it and be face to face with Jesus. Okay? But that's faith in something future. But what Jesus really wants us to do right now is to have faith in what's now, and His rest is now. That He's already accomplished everything. He's accomplished everything for you. Every trial, everything, just like Bill says in there, the answer is always Jesus. Okay? The answer is always Jesus. Period. It's the only answer. That's the answer to every problem that you have, is Jesus. Now that sounds trite maybe. Say, well, I got money problems, or I've got... The answer is Jesus. Trust. Walk in fellowship with Him, and you will... And of course, what we're saying here is this is on the inside. What does that do to you? Well, that causes you, when you have faith and trust on the inside, causes you to put one foot in front of the other as you go about your life and do what you know is right to do. What comes to you, what the Lord shows you, where He gives you the opportunity to be or go or what have you, you just keep on going and trusting. And whatever, and Paul says, whatever is good, what is faithful, whatever is true, just follow those things. Okay? You know what's not right to do. We know that, drugs is bad for us. Alcohol is bad for us. We know that making love to somebody else's spouse is not good for us. Okay, so it's not what it's not what you don't do. You just focus on what you know to do that is right and good. Okay, is loving somebody good? Yes. Okay, is giving things good? Yes. If you have something to give, fine. If you don't, no problem. But you always have love to give. Okay, you always have love to give. All right, so that's how we end this rest. We're in this rest, but how do you participate? Simply by believing that you're in it and God's done it and you don't have anything left to do. Okay?
The result of faith is rest.
Yes. Yeah, that's the participation. You already have it. You're in it. This is what we need to see. I'm in rest. And if I'm ever in an unrest situation in my soul, why is that? Maybe I've stopped trusting. Maybe Jesus isn't big enough to be my answer. Okay? Okay? Now be honest with yourself if it is. Okay? Don't get on your case. Don't feel downcast. Well, I failed because now I'm, hey, we all do.
I've heard people say this, that when you can't help yourself, you're feeling wonderful, and we call it witnessing or whatever, but the conversation come up, so we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy says, it can't be this good.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It can't be
Yeah.
this good.
Yeah.
I thought that, so it has to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, my answer always to that is if it can't be this good, it's got to be God. Okay. If it's better than you can think, better than you can imagine, it's God. Okay. All right.
Don't you feel like sometimes you're just an observer? I realize we're in this body now, this suit, if you will. But sometimes that you feel like it's almost like you're being motivated and you're just going, what next?
Yeah.
Because it's that wonderful.
Yes.
And it's indescribable, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to put it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wake up like that every day.
Yeah. That's great.
Swear to God,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
I don't even say
Yeah.
that. I wake
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? Let's
Yeah.
go get it.
Sometimes, however, I have to admit, sometimes after a couple of negative things have happened, I think, now when's the next shoe going to fall?
What's
So,
next?
yeah, what's next?
I always think I just haven't got it fixed yet.
Yeah.
I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
I always think I get another day.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's super. All right. Fantastic. All right. Therefore, since it remains for some to enter it, and those who formerly received the good news did not enter because of disobedience. Disobedience was what? Not anything they did, it was what they didn't believe. That was the disobedience. They didn't believe the good report, they believed the negative report. So he again specifies a certain today. Today. He specified this speaking through David after such a long time. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. And this is for us today. For it's still today with God, okay? It's always the same day with God. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken later about another day. So this Sabbath rest that they had in their law and stuff was not about a day. It was about the rest in Jesus Christ that we have. Therefore, a Sabbath rest remains for God's people. For the person who has entered his rest has rested from his own works, just as God did from his. So let us then make every effort, listen to this, an effort now to enter that rest, so that no one will fall into the same pattern of disobedience. Now we got to work. Now we got to work at this. I got to work at resting to enter into a rest.
That's an invisible job.
So, Colossians 1, I put this in it. Whereunto I also labor, striving according to his working, which worketh in me mightily. So, what do? I got to work to get into this rest. What Jesus, we put up here at the top. Jesus said, cast all your cares on him. Well, Jesus didn't say this, but Peter did. Casting all your cares on him because he cares. So, if I got to labor to enter into this rest, what am I going to do? I'm going to cast that on Jesus. Right? I'm going to cast this laboring on Jesus. Now, most of us were raised in some kind of a church environment, and especially we were, and they were always talking about striving. I'm striving to be better, striving to do good, or striving to witness, or all this kind of stuff. So, striving, laboring, working. These are words that have been used to create angst in us to try to be better, or to quit sinning, or do more for the church. However, these words in the Bible are meant to encourage us to quit doing those things in order to rest. Strive to enter God's rest, the Sabbath. In other words, you wake up to the reality of what God has wrought in and through Jesus Christ. And all you do is just wake up to the fact you're there. There isn't any real striving, but if there is any work, it's striving to quit. Striving to quit working, okay? And for some people, that's tough. Now, for me, I'm natural at it because I'm lazy, okay? And so this works for me.
Oh, that's just
Yeah,
physical.
wait, right, well, Robin, yeah.
Okay, I just think that work is really love.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really work like as we think of working
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah, you're right.
but it's more like love.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just acknowledging, what already is. But we have problems sometimes believing, right? I'm not sure God's really big enough. So if you haven't, that means, and of course he's saying here, then you want to be in this rest, right? Okay, so what are you going to do? And of course the thing then to do, if you have trouble resting, if you have trouble with faith, what do you say? I believe, help my unbelief. Remember,
You
this is the one prayer that I've shared with you many times. To always, if you're having trouble with faith or believing, just talk to the Lord. Say, hey, I believe, Lord, but help my unbelief. Okay? I can't do this by myself. I can't even believe by myself. Okay? This is dumping again. When you say that prayer, you're dumping in it, casting all your cares on Him, because that's a care, right? I need to believe, but I can't believe. I don't believe enough. That's a care. Cast it on Jesus. Okay, Jesus, I don't believe enough. Rather than say, well, yeah, I'm going to try to work up my faith. I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to try to do this, because you can't do it on your own. Okay, you just can't do it on your own. You'd have to say, Jesus, I need help with this. Okay. Now, Rachel has shared the fact she has quit smoking, and of course it's still a struggle, I'm sure, right? Because it's a habit. But but you just say, hey, dump it on Jesus. Every minute, every get the say, Jesus, hey, I need help here. Okay, okay, and because we need to admit we're weak. We are. The flesh is weak, but in the new creation that we all are, you're strong. So just let your mind be renewed every day to the fact that God loves you. He loves you with His whole being, not just a little bit. He loves you with His whole being, and you are His favorite. Father, thank you for this truth. Thank you for who you are, and thank you that we're all your favorites. We love you, but we thank for most of all that you love us. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Let's